Hello. Well, it's dawn or just shortly after, and I'm in Randwick woods on a path just straight up above the church. And this morning I'm here to listen. You might be familiar with that quote that's attributed to Mahatma Gandhi that says, "Speak only if what you've got to say improves on the silence." And it's probably easy to think about people who are very ready with their opinions and their views, but actually when I hear that quote, I try to not think about people who I find talk a bit too much, but rather to think about what it's telling me about silence and the kind of perfection of it, and how useful it is to us in our contemplations and in bringing some peace in our daily lives. When we've been in lockdown for a few months in the spring of 2020, people began to notice nature a lot more, and people talked a lot about the birdsong. And for a while, we all thought maybe it was louder because we could hear it more. And then we began to realise that actually there was less background noise, so there was no traffic or very little traffic, there was no air travel. The whole natural environment seemed to change. The skies were literally clearer because there were no vapour trails from aircraft, etc., etc. And then experts started to notice that the birds were actually possibly singing quieter because they weren't needing to compete with background noise, particularly in urban areas. They weren't trying to shout over the top of all of the noise that we make in our daily lives, in our commuting and deliveries and factories and so on. You might know the story of Elijah meeting God in the silence. Once all the noise stops, Elijah finally encounters the divine. It's a story from 1 Kings, and it says, "Now there was a great wind so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire a sound of sheer silence." So here in the woods, very early in the morning on a weekend, I'm just enjoying the tail end of the dawn chorus, that hour around sunrise when the birds just really let go and deliver the most vivid and exultant singing of the whole day. And often it's the best time to hear the birdsong because it is largely against a background of sheer silence. So maybe the warblers, the great tits, the blackbirds, the robins and the thrushes and the tree creepers that I'm hoping the microphone might be picking up a little bit of this morning. Maybe they're all issuing their kind of reply to Gandhi by maybe actually improving on the silence, or perhaps they are actually part of the silence themselves, part of the beautiful, part of the sacred. But you don't necessarily need to come to woods. You don't necessarily need to even be anywhere particularly wild to enjoy the dawn chorus. So if you do get the opportunity, happen to be awake early, just open your window at sunrise and listen before the busyness and the noise of the day takes over. Or perhaps this morning the last word should go to our finest local wordsmith, Rory Lee, who articulated the sort of experience of being in a wild and beautiful place on an April morning in his poem April Rise. If ever I saw blessing in the air, I see it now, this still early day, where lemon green the vaporous morning drips, wet sunlight on the powder of my eye. Blown bubble film of blue the sky wraps round, weeds of warm light whose every root and rod splutters soapy green, and all the world sweats with the bead of summer in its bud. If ever I saw blessing, it is there, where birds in trees that shoals and shadows are, splash with their hidden wings, and drops of sound break on my ears their crests of throbbing air. Pure in the haze the emerald sun dilates, the lips of sparrow's milk, the mossy stones, while white as water by the lake a girl swims her hand among the gathered swans. Now as the almond burns its smoking wick, dropping small flames to light the candled grass, now as my low blood scales its second chance, if ever world was blessed, now it is.